Okay, so we've got our scene set up, and our scene set up, and we've even talked about setting up some cameras and some basic organization. Recognize that I've imported in my environment and I've imported in my cars, but my cars are not necessarily what it is I am ready to start animating. Okay, so I want to talk just a little bit about replacing references. So if I get a file, I'm just going to open my scene, and I'm going to open up my cars. All right. I'll go ahead and open up my green car. Don't. Oh, let's go ahead and save that. Yeah. So here's my green car, and as you'll see, all I have is a mesh, a bunch of mesh here, and a group, right, for that mesh. Now, I don't really want to change anything here after I've set keyframes on anything. But this may not be organized the way you need it to animate. Right? So what I would like to do is do a little light rigging on this, just so we can be thinking about what it is we need. Right? Now this is going to change for every shot. So there may be some shots that let's say we have a relatively close-up shot on the front end here. Right? Let's say this is the shot we want. Right? And what I want is in that shot, I want the headlights to be rattling. Right? Well, this is not necessarily set up for best practices for that. Right? If you would like, it may be a little bit messy, but one of the things you can do is select all of this, go to Mesh, Separate, and you'll notice that, oh, I'm sorry, Mesh, oh, Separate, should have done it. Maybe I have to do it one piece at a time. Mesh, Separate, and you'll see what I get is a whole bunch of other models, right? And what this has done is broken it up into one piece at a time of the things that I need. Right? So this may not be the way I need to do it for that piece. Maybe I'll just undo all that. But it may be what I need for the headlights and some of these pieces here. Right? So let's do those one piece at a time. Mesh, separate, mesh, separate. And then I don't necessarily like leaving them in these folders like this, but it could still work. And so now I should be able to get this headlight and get all of the pieces that I need for the headlight all as one. Right? And I could then go to Mesh, Combine. And then hopefully I could just select all this stuff and say edit, delete by type history, and it'll kind of put some of that stuff back where it belongs. So now I get this one piece of mesh here, right? And then I can go to my move tool, which happens to be here, and what I would really want to do is just hit insert and put this over here next to this. Right? And so now what I get is the ability to animate that sort of wobbling a little bit. Right? Of course, there's another way of doing this. Let's just reopen this entire file. File, open scene, green car, open scene, don't see, save. So I just reopened the original file. Right? And of course, the other way to do this is with a skeleton. Right? And so my 2 cents is I think the skeleton method is probably the most versatile, right? But it requires a little bit of pre-thought on what it is you're going to need to rattle in each scene, and it takes a little bit of reworking on the rig later, right? So for example, if I know I want this to move, or want this to aim, or I know I want these pieces to aim, I would want to go ahead and build a skeleton for that. Right? This actually works pretty well, but we would have to paint weights on that. So what I'm going to do is create I'm sorry, I have to go to my rigging, skeleton, create joints, and then from maybe let's do it from the side view. I would start with a root joint, right here. We're not seeing joints, are we? I guess we are. They're just small. Okay, got a root joint, right? And then I would maybe go up here to add one for my headlight. We go back here and select this joint again. Get a new one for this, for my little rocket piece. G to do it again, and maybe one for this rocket piece. And like anything that we think we're going to need a little bit of animation on, right? From the rendering, you may not actually need anything on the inside the car. Like that may not even be that visible. But you know, maybe I decide I want a little bend in this antenna. Right? So all of these are things that I will need to rig up, and you'll see that by doing this, let's see, shading, let's do X-ray joints. All of my joints are in the center, so I'll need to go in there and move those out to the locations they need to be. But I'm not going to do any like super crazy detail on this rigging. Right? I'm rigging for necessity, right? And if I want to add a skeleton to some of, or to add controllers to this, I totally can. Or if I feel like I can just manually key those, that's probably not the best choice. But you know, for something small, that may be all I need, right? Let's get that lined up. Right? And then the final thing I would do is go in here and I gotta get my headlight in the right spot. There we go. So of course I want to go through here and name everything, right? This is, there's a naming tool out here somewhere. I always have trouble finding this. I think it's here. Rename. So we'll call this root. This is headlight. This is side rocket. You know, I need to be putting L in front of these. This is underscore rear rocket, and then what I can do is just mirror these across. So skeleton mirror joints, I want to mirror those across the YZ plane, and I would say search for L underscore replace with R underscore mirror. Let's just try it one at a time. And then hit G to do that twice. Okay, so that's what we got. So the reason I do this is because skeleton, skinning, those are things that can be changed in the rig. Changing the hierarchy of stuff or changing the mesh of stuff may cause you issues if you're referencing stuff in. What I would like to do is create some controls for this, right? And I'm going to be very simple myself in doing this. So this is a really hard question though. Where do you want your pivot point to be? Right? And really, this control is going to really change that, right? So if I rotate this, it's how is my car going to lean, right? And it's going to lean from the very bottom and the center. But if I were to raise this up a little higher, up to here, it's going to pivot from this location instead. Right? Let's try something like this. I'm going to do modify freeze transformations on my control, and I'll call this main control. And then I'm just going to use that control and constrain that to my root. Constrain parent. So what you see now is that I'm able to pivot the entire car. What I would do next is just, I didn't name my antenna, did I? I'm going to try antenna. There we go. So what I'm going to do is grab my entire skeleton, grab all the pieces of my car, skin, bind skin. Right? So what this means is now this control is going to control everything. These joints are going to warp my car. Right? That may not be what we want, but this is kind of cool because what we can do now is grab this entire car, right click, paint skin weights. Paint skin weights tool goes over here, and I can just flood everything to the root joint. Right? The reason I do that is because now I can just add in weights on the things that I want. Right? So if I want a little bit of a jitter on my left headlight, I can go in here and I believe I can. Well, I'll test that in a second here, but I can just make my brush smaller and then just paint weights on the headlight for that joint. And I'll show you a sort of another quick trick you could do for this. So let's go ahead and hit W because I'm not really done. But what we're getting here is like, now that's just going to jitter the headlight, right? That joint is. What I'm going to do instead is I'm going to start selecting the faces I need. So if I select that face, I hold Shift and then the greater than key. It's going to start selecting everything in that mesh. The same with this. I can hold that, Shift greater than. It's going to select all that mesh. And I believe there's another mesh in here for the, for the screen. So I'm going to right click on that and say face, Shift greater than. And so now I have that entire piece selected, right? And I can go to show, isolate selected, view selected. And now I only see those polygons, right? And so now, if I select all of this as an object and go to paint skin weights, I don't have to worry about accidentally painting something else, right? Make my brush really big, and I can just start painting everything I want. This would also work if we separated this out and we could just do the flood skin weights. Right? It does not look like I'm painting the skin weights on this guy, so let's try that. There we go. And so now I believe if I go back and unisolate selected, what I get is the ability to get a very small jitter on that joint. Okay. Now how you want to control that is up to you. One of the things you could do is add a control on here, right? If you want to get all of your controls in one spot, we could do modify, add an attribute, right? And we could call this L headlight, and hit add. And then, of course, what I would have to do is select this control. It's the rotate Y, and then I would go into my Windows General Editor, Connection Editor. In my Connection Editor, I have my main control selected. There's the right headlight or left headlight. I would click this and reload the left. And so I think we said that was rotate Y. So I would wire up my left headlight to rotate Y. And what that'll do is that gives me the ability to animate that headlight from this main control while we're animating, right? Let's save this, but let's not save over our green car. Let's actually do something new. Let's go File, Save Scene As, and I'm going to make a new folder here. I'm going to make a folder called Rig. Let's do Rigs. And then I will go in here and say, save this as Hi Green Car. Okay. Save as. So now watch this. If I go back to my open scene, this is where hopefully all this pays off, unless there's an issue. And I go back to my animation scene, shot 3. I meant to name that 0001, but and I open this up. Now it's still pulling the model from it's still pulling the model file without that rig, right? But if I go to my reference editor, I should be able to change this reference. I can go to Reference, Replace Reference, and I'm going to replace that reference with our rigged car reference. So notice the only thing different now is now I have these controls that I can animate on. Right? I would suggest hiding your joints. And now, if I start setting keys on this, anything that I'm setting a key on here will be saved in this file. Now, I think that's the important thing to recognize. We got all of this stuff going on. When I save my animation file, because of the reference editor, the only thing that is being saved is things that I have changed in this file. All of these things with the little blue stars on them, I'm not changing any of that. Like, I mean, I'm setting keyframes, but those keyframes are in this file. If I go back to my reference, or my rig, those keyframes are not going to be there, right? They're just saved in this file. And so that means now I can go ahead and start animating my car in this scene, and I can add that little headlight jiggle all I want. Okay, hopefully that makes sense. We're going to pick this up with another short video right after this where I talk about what this high-low thing is that I've got going on with all these scenes. So we'll see that next.